What if I told you that as you're watching this, whether it be you're standing, sitting, watching this on your TV, or watching this on your phone, that none of this is real and that we're all living in a simulation? Well, that's what some people believe. Yes, I'm making another conspiracy video today. Guys, can you tell I've been really into conspiracy theories recently? I've been watching a lot of Reddit videos and reading a lot of Reddit conspiracy theories, and I've been just going down all these rabbit holes, and I found this really cool iceberg that I will add in, and I really wanted to go through and explore all of these conspiracies because they're really interesting, and I've never heard of some of these. Like, past the third tier, I don't think I recognize any of these. So I wanted to go through all of these together, and every week that I do one of these conspiracy videos, spin a random spin generator name thingy. What is that called? But spin one of those and get a conspiracy for each tier of the iceberg until we run out. Because there's some of these I'm like, what the heck is that? I would like to start the first episode of this series with what I spun on this week, which was the simulation theory. I think I've definitely heard of the simulation theory before, and I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. That's why it's so high up on the iceberg. I haven't really dove in deep to the intricacies, which is the simulation theory, and why people believe in that, all the evidence that people have towards their argument towards this. So I'm really excited to get into this and actually finally learn something about the simulation theory. Okay, let's get into this theory. I want you to stop for a second. Look around the room you're in right now. The walls, the ceiling, even the light that's coming in through the window, the weight of your body in a chair, or the feeling of holding something in your hands. What if none of that is real? What if the very room you're sitting in right now is just code? Your memories, your feelings, the entire history of your life is data running on a machine that's so advanced that we can't even imagine it. The idea that reality might be an illusion is actually an ancient theory. In Hinduism, there's a concept called Maya, the idea that the physical world is a kind of cosmic illusion, a veil draped over the deeper truth. Then in ancient Greece, Plato wrote about prisoners chained in a cave. All they can see are their shadows on the wall in front of them. They think their shadows are reality. They've never seen anything else, until one prisoner escapes, turns around, and sees the fire casting the shadows, sees that everything he just believes was just a projection. In 1641, philosopher René Descartes sat alone in his room and asked himself, what if a powerful demon is feeding me a completely false reality? What if everything I see, feel, taste, and touch is just an elaborate deception? He couldn't prove it wasn't true. That thought haunted him. Fast forward to 1999. The Matrix hits cinemas. Suddenly, millions of people are walking out of theaters looking at their hands like, wait, what if? But it wasn't until 2003 when someone sat down and made a scientific mathematical argument that we might actually be living in one. His name was Nick Bostrom, and his paper made a lot of very smart people very uncomfortable. So what is Bostrom's argument, you might ask? Bostrom is a philosopher at Oxford. In 2003, he published a paper called, Are You Living in a Computer Simulation? And unlike most philosophy papers, this one got read by scientists, technologists, and eventually, basically everyone on the internet. His argument is called the simulation trilemma. It says one of three things must be true, and there's no getting around it. Branch 1. Advanced civilizations always destroy themselves first. Every species that evolves to the point of being able to build realistic simulations destroys itself before getting there. War, climate, AI, disease, something always wipes them out. So no simulations ever get built, which means that we're not in one. That's the hopeful option, by the way. Branch 2. Advanced civilizations choose not to run simulations. They reach the capacity and collectively decide not to use it. Maybe it's considered unethical. Maybe they don't want to create conscious beings in a box. But think about that. If you had the ability to run a perfect simulation of an entire universe with real conscious living beings living real lives, would you not at least turn it on once? Out of curiosity? And then there's branch 3, that we're most certainly in a simulation right now. If civilizations do survive and they do run simulations, they'd run thousands of them, millions. Every simulated world could contain billions of conscious beings, each of whom could build their own simulated worlds inside. The number of simulated minds would dwarf the number of real ones by almost an infinite ratio. So statistically, if you're a conscious being who can ask the question, am I in a simulation? The overwhelming probability is that you are. Bostrom himself says he doesn't know which branch is true. He's genuinely unsure, and he's the one that wrote the paper. But let's see what physics say. Exhibit A. Reality has a resolution limit. The Planck length is the smallest unit of space that can theoretically exist. Anything smaller is physically meaningless. It's like a pixel, a minimum render distance. If you were designing a simulation and wanted to conserve processing power, you'd set a minimum resolution. We have one. Exhibit B. Things don't exist until you look at them. This one's really crazy and not actually a conspiracy theory. It's called quantum superposition. Particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed. The act of measuring them collapses them into one position. They don't have a defined state until somebody looks at them. It's kind of like when you're in a video game and the world only renders what the camera can see. Exhibit C. The speed of light might be a processing limit. Nothing in the universe can travel faster than light. It's one of the most fundamental rules of physics. Why? Why is there a speed limit at all? One theory, that it's not a physical law, and that it might be a computational constraint. The simulation can only process information so fast. Neil deGrasse Tyson joked on a podcast once that maybe we can't travel past the speed of light because the programmers haven't rendered what's on the other side yet. Exhibit D, and I really love this theory, the Mandela effect. You know this one, Bernstein versus Bernstein. Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s, Monopoly Man's monocle. Huge numbers of people share identical false memories of things that never happened. The internet's favorite explanation? The simulation was corrected. Some people's memories hadn't been cleared yet. Now, for the counter-arguments, the computing power problem. Researchers at Oxford calculated that to simulate just a few hundred electrons at full quantum resolution, you need a computer with more memory than there are atoms in the entire universe. And to simulate a reality, we can't even imagine, let alone write that number down. Simulator would have to be incomprehensibly and incredibly large. Unless, and this is a counter-argument to the counter-argument, the simulator isn't bound by our physics. Maybe in its reality, computation works completely different than ours does. Maybe what's impossible for us is trivial for them. Next, the 2025 Gödel argument. Just last year, physicists at the University of British Columbia published a paper using Gödel's incompleteness theorem to argue that reality requires what they call non-algorithmic understanding, something no computer can replicate. Their conclusion is that any simulation would be inherently algorithmic. Real consciousness isn't, so therefore we aren't in one. And then finally, the doesn't even matter argument. Even if we're in a simulation, we can't get out, we can't test it, or message the programmers. The experience of being alive feels the same way either way. Does it truly change anything? Maybe. Maybe not. We'll come back to that. So now that we've done the science part and the philosophy part, I want to dive into something else. I want to dive into the questions that just have no answers, that I don't know if we'll ever know. If we're living in a simulation, who runs it? Are they a scientist? Are they a kid? Our entire universe somebody's homework assignment that they abandoned in 2009, and that's why it feels so messed up. Are we the main characters, or are we NPCs? When you're walking down the street and you pass a stranger, are they conscious? And how would you even know? And then one that gets me, and it kind of freaks me out thinking about this. I saw somebody on Reddit, I'll try to find it. I saw somebody on Reddit mention this, and that's where I'm getting it from. It really threw me through a loop for a couple days. If you believe consciousness can be simulated, then what is consciousness? What makes you feel like you? If a computer can replicate the exact signals of pattern in your brain and then go on to create something that believes it's you, feels what you feel, loves who you love, then is it you? Even though they've had their own experiences, their own loves, their own traumas, their own everything, if they're in a simulation, is that person real? And if that, what is death? Do our souls get saved somewhere? Is there a version of you that's already ran through your life already? Lots of weird things to think about. The thing that actually unsettles me isn't that we might be in a simulation. I think the thing that unsettles me the most is that we just won't know. We might be asking this very question for the rest of human history, and the answer might be permanently and fundamentally out of reach. Because unfortunately, the walls of the simulation don't exactly have a seam that you can find on the edge. So, after all my research, I feel like my brain is gonna explode. But is the simulation theory viable? Here's where I landed after going on a giant rabbit hole for like basically a week. I think coming from a non-mathematician or physicist or anything smart and truly just somebody that likes to research things, I think the argument has a lot of good points. I don't think Bostrom's trilemma has any obvious escapes. The physics in this theory are at least weird enough to make sense. And the people that are taking it seriously or like joking about it, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, are like some of the smartest people ever. But I also think that the Gödel paper raises some questions as well, though, because consciousness might be the one thing that we cannot fake. The things that make us us might be the exact things that make it impossible to be living in a simulation. My verdict on the situation, I'm not 100% sure because I don't know if I'm like smart enough to be giving my opinion on this, but from an outside perspective of somebody that's not like in the sciences or anything like that, I think that there could be a possibility. I don't know about a computer program, but it could be true because consciousness is a very weird thing. And also, like, we are so small in the universe. We have no idea what's going on really outside of our solar system, so to even like try to guess that would be impossible. We have no idea like the limitations that we have compared to like whoever is out there. And the people that don't believe in aliens, sorry, I do believe in aliens, because I think it's incredibly like selfish of me to be like, I'm the only thing in the universe. Like, there's definitely something out there, and the fact that we don't know anything about their consciousness and the way their consciousness operates, I wouldn't be quick to dismiss it. So that's my answer. And you know what I find weirdly comforting? Whether this is a simulation or not, the simulation or not has brought you here to this very moment to watch my video. And whatever it is, it's the only version we've got as far as we know. So we gotta make it count. You gotta watch as many YouTube videos as you possibly can. And I gotta just start researching way more. I just love going through conspiracy theories, especially sciencey ones and like ones that have to do with like physics and philosophy. God, I love philosophy. Put your craziest conspiracy theories in the comments because I really want to know what you guys find interesting. Do you find the sciencey and philosophy ones cool? Or do you find like the really weird, creepy ones cool? Like, please let me know. I had so much fun. Let me know what you guys think about the simulation theory. Do you guys think that's viable, not viable, weird, not weird? Please let me know. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions in the comments because, you know, I die for your guys' opinions. Come on, give them. Anyways, hi, I'm Isabella, and thank you for listening and joining me today. If you liked today's video, you should hit that like button because it really helps me out. And like always, if you had fun this time, you should subscribe because I guarantee you'll have fun next time because I do post every other Monday. Anyways, love ya. Great to see ya. And I will see you next time. Bye.